afternoon, good evening, good morning to everyone who is listening and watching this webinar, What Your Brain Wishes You Knew About Leadership Stress, Myths and Solutions for All Managers and Leaders at All Levels. Hi, I'm Christina Haxton, and I'd like to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining me this Saturday evening or Sunday morning, depending on where you are at. If you are wanting to make sure that you're in the right place, if you are a newly hired or recently promoted leader at any level who's overwhelmed by having too much to do, not enough time to get it all done, if you are challenged with making quick and good decisions under pressure, if you're convinced your team isn't as motivated as you need them to be, and if you're looking for practical tools to do your best work so you can feel more productive and satisfied at the end of the day, are you spending too much time at work and wonder if your family notices? And do you wonder if you're headed for burnout or burnout? You know, just for a minute, think about your worst boss, your very, very worst boss. Now, as that image comes to mind, now I want you to think about your best boss. Now let that image come to mind. And I want you to ask yourself, how do you want to be remembered as a leader or a boss? Today we're going to spend about an hour together, maybe a little bit short of that, depending on how much Q&A there is. You're going to discover practical strategies you can use immediately to create a work environment to inspire innovation and initiative in not only yourself, but your team. You're going to learn which one small change can give you 5 to 20 hours of time a week. You're going to learn how to turn off the part of your brain that keeps you from thinking clearly. You're going to learn 7 words you should avoid using with your team at all costs. You're going to learn the 2 best words to use when asking a question. You're also going to understand how you can keep conflict and stress from spreading like a virus through your team. And if you're interested in more resources to increase the odds you'll turn this webinar into a personal leadership development plan, at the end, I have a very exciting announcement and a special pricing and bonuses just for those who are on the call today or who listen within 24 hours. So please stay until the end. So for those of you on the webinar or on the phone, I wanted just to define what I believe is leadership, and it's not just myself. This actually comes from Kevin Cashman, who wrote Leadership from the Inside Out, fantastic book. It's a must-read for newly hired, recently promoted, or extraordinarily experienced leaders. Leadership is authentic influence that creates value, and that's going to be really important for you to understand and remember as we go forward when we define leadership stress and the solutions to leadership stress. Some of you on the call may or may not know what a sustainable leader is. And a sustainable leader is a leader who is built from the inside out and the outside in, who's built to last, to coin a phrase from the truck I drive, a Dodge truck, right? Built to last. But a sustainable leader is built to last from the inside out and from the outside in. And what I mean by that is inside out is a sustainable leader really understands what motivates and drives them. They are an authentic leader, and they also understand that it's in relationships that they learn and grow and become even better leaders. And it's in conversations that they have with their team, with their board, with their boss, with their customers and clients that are going to, with that information, make them even better, sustainable leaders and effective leaders. So why do we need sustainable leaders? Well, think about 2008. What happened? We had an extraordinary economic downturn that just leveled the playing field, that left many, many companies upside down, that left many people fired, that left many people laid off, left many, many people financially devastated, that left many CEOs of some extraordinarily, what we thought were basically very grounded, solid organizations to be turned upside down. And it also gave an opportunity for leaders who were less than honest and less than authentic an opportunity to fall. And that fall down that corporate ladder is swift and noisy, oftentimes. So sustainable leaders are built to last, not just for the long haul, but they're going to be built to last for the next recession, the next downturn, the next whatever happens that threatens our economy. So that's why we need sustainable leaders. Sustainable leaders also are resilient. They bounce back. They are agile, I believe, as Kevin Cashman talks about, learning agility, leadership agility, the ability to make quick decisions based on your exceptional intuition and judgment, as well as emotion and data. And when we are balanced and centered, we make much more fluid, intuitive, accurate decisions. And as a leader, you have to make those decisions very quickly, and you have to make correct decisions, or you might not have your title very much longer. Sustainable leaders are also understand how they can harness their team's potential. They're also satisfied and happy at the end of the day, and so is their team. So if you are paid to think, or if you pay others to think, your biggest asset may be endangered. And we're going to talk about today what that is, why that is, and what you can do about it. Again, welcome. My name is Christina Haxton, and I am a leadership author, speaker, and executive coach, and I would love to welcome you to our webinar today. Using proven strategies based in brain science, science has busy professionals, managers, and leaders at all levels how to understand and manage and even leverage stress so that they become sustainable leaders and they have sustainable teams. I have worked with and am currently working with people from these organizations as well as some of these organizations in their entirety to become more effective, productive, creative, connected, and satisfied. So today, we are going to do 5 things. We're going to understand what it means to take 100% responsibility. You're going to get Brain Science 101, just enough information about your brain to be dangerous. But I think it's important for you to understand some of the brain-based strategies and brain-based theories in neuroscience in a way that you can really apply it, and it helps you apply the strategies for it and take away and use the understandings you're going to get today, because understanding is horribly overrated. You can understand while you're listening to me, while we're talking, while we're having this interaction, but if you do not apply it, it is a waste of time. So for that, I will challenge you to take one small thing away and apply it. We're going to talk at the end of that, a leadership development plan, a leadership strategy. And if you're interested in the possibility of taking this forward and really applying it and being accountable to a network of your peers, a group of your peers, you will find out how you can do that at the end. We're going to talk about stress, why we can't live with it, can't live without it. We're going to talk about head and heart balance, not just from a spiritual perspective, but from a scientific perspective. You're going to learn 10 solutions to better manage, reduce, eliminate, and leverage leadership stress. And because understanding is overrated, you're going to learn how you can take action. So let's get started. First of all, I don't want you to just understand and be a passive participant. I want you to write down right now whatever you have in front of you, whether it's a napkin, a note paper, it's a whiteboard, if anything, that you write down what's one small thing you want to take away, that you know that at the end of this webinar, you will be able to say, it was absolutely worth my time on a Saturday evening for whatever I was going to do to invest in my leadership development today. What's one thing you will learn and take away today to make this webinar worth your time? So if you're on the webcast, go ahead and please type in the Q&A box on your left-hand side of the screen, what's one small thing you want to take away today, and how will you know this webinar has been a good use of your time? And because we can't solve problems with the same thinking we used when we created them, as Einstein said, and Gandhi said, be the Be the change you want to see in the world. Talk about authentic leadership. And I think this is my personal favorite. I actually didn't know Einstein said this. And as a marriage and family therapist for, maybe 18 years now, I constantly see that people are doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, not only in my counseling business, but in my coaching business. And it was very interesting that I didn't know that Einstein actually said this. This is probably one of his better days. So talking about stress, I've heard it's interesting how men and women see stress a little differently. I just wrote a recent blog post, and you can read it at sustainable-leaders.com/news-ideas. That's the blog. And I just wrote a quick post based on an informal survey that I did about stress. And very, very interesting, if I have a group of male senior level managers and leaders and CEOs, and I ask for a raise of hands as to how many in the room say that stress is a problem. Very few, well, maybe half, not quite half, would raise their hand. And I think depending on the company, fewer would even raise their hand and admit that. Now, it's interesting that I actually just did a keynote for a women's leadership conference, in which in the room, there were a little over 200 people in the room. I asked the same question: raise your hand if stress is a problem and affects your leadership ability. And I have to say probably 80% of the women in that room who were business owners, some of very, very successful companies, and some just starting out, raised their hands. And I thought, I wonder why this is. Why is this such an undiscussable in the room, or undiscussable elephant in the room, if you will, for men? And so I wrote a blog post about it, and you're welcome to read it at sustainable-leaders.com/news-ideas. You go to the website Sustainable Leaders, and you can click on the blog link and find out exactly why there is actually research to support my informal survey. So it is an undiscussable in the room, and because primarily CEOs and successful executives are men, I thought this was an appropriate topic. So it could be that men don't necessarily identify the symptoms of stress. I think their spouses do, and I think their doctors may, if they go into the doctor for problems with heart palpitations, or they're not feeling well, or they're not particularly motivated, or panic, anxiety, worry, or they're just going in for the regular checkup, and the doctor finds some surprising results. And sometimes what you may hear is, oh, don't worry, it's just stress. That really concerns me. The don't worry part concerns me, because left undiagnosed, untreated, stress can kill you. And the reason is because when we experience stress, even low levels of stress over a period of time, there's a hormone that gets released from our brain. It's called cortisol, and you may have heard of it. You may not have heard of it, but just to suffice to say, the cortisol is great when we need to run from saber-toothed tigers, or we need to get something done, and we need to pair that with some adrenaline to get things done. But if we have cortisol in our system at mild, even to moderate levels, what happens is it suppresses our immune system. Now think about that. Now think about the dis-ease you experience when you're under stress. And put those two words, dis-ease, together. What do you get? Hopefully you don't get a doctor that says, don't worry, it's just stress. But it not only affects us physically, but absolutely affects the part of the brain that's responsible for the ability to stay focused, for making decisions, for reasoning, for understanding, and for learning. And for that, you need to pay attention today. On top of the regular, usual type of stress, there is also a unique type of stress called power stress or leadership stress. Power stress is a term that Dr. Richard Boyastis from Case Management Western University has discovered that it's a unique type of stress felt by those who are in a position of power and influence over others, who are also responsible for the well-being of others. And I would imagine that many of you on this call are responsible for the well-being of others. You might have a payroll to meet, you have employees, you have staff, you have team, you have customers, you have clients who rely on you. So, as if you don't have enough to worry about, you also have to understand that power stress is a real problem. The good news is there is a real solution, and you're going to learn the skills you need to have to be able to apply the solution at the end of this call. So stress actually isn't all bad. We actually don't want to eliminate stress, and you'll find out in just a moment. But we don't want to eliminate stress completely, at least, 100% of the time. We want to eliminate it when we're sleeping. We want to eliminate it at times. We want to eliminate unnecessary stress. But we actually want to reduce or manage bad stress. And we want to increase or leverage good stress. So stress can be good, bad, and undiagnosed, untreated bad stress can get really ugly. The good news is good stress is I don't know if you can see this or not. It probably just looks like a pot with a bunch of dirt in it, but because you're not seeing the active slide, if you can just imagine that a seed pushing through the soil, which leaves and sprouts and grows, is a good stress. So a good stress is a stress that it's a push that causes growth and change in its positive form. In its negative form, as you can imagine, causes all kinds of problems if there is nothing that's done about it. So let's talk about stress that's necessary for performance. So on the left-hand side, if we have low stress, we have sleep and low performance. As we increase alertness, we have a little bit more stress and a little bit more better performance. The inverted U of peak performance is what you're looking at now, and I think it was actually probably designed or discovered or described in the 40s, mostly about not necessarily performance, performance, but athletic performance. But those of you who are paid to think, it's not as much athletic performance, although I'm sure you start out your day at a sprint and end up feeling like you ran a marathon at the end of the day, because that's there's a part of your brain that you are using to stay focused, make decisions, reason, understand, and learn. And that's a very fragile part of the brain. So let's talk about the stress-performance connection with respect to cognitive abilities or our thinking abilities. So at the peak performance level, we are at optimal level of performance, of being creative, of being innovative, of writing a report, of coming up with some great ideas, a strategy, a marketing plan, and being able to think about what needs to happen for those things to happen. Now, if we just add just a little bit more stress, we end up feeling anxious. And when we end up feeling anxious, the part of the brain that's responsible for peak performance as far as thinking goes becomes disorganized, becomes not usable, it goes to sleep, basically. It shuts down. And those of you on the call, you probably have identified with this, is when you get a lot of stress going on, sometimes you can't even think or make a decision, right? So if you can't think or make a decision, you're in some trouble. So the signs and symptoms of stress, we talked a little bit about that already, but some of the physical symptoms, you have physical symptoms, heart palpitations, difficulty sleeping, difficulty digesting, low motivation, inability or irritability, big symptoms. So not just one of these, but a cluster of these could point to the fact that you're experiencing stress. Some of the other cognitive symptoms of stress that I see all the time are, again, the inability to make a decision, the inability, the irritability, the difficulty solving problems, the difficulty in getting along with others, the tendency to withdraw, the tendency not to reach out, especially for men. I think that happens quite a bit. They just isolate themselves. So think about, and I'll call this the ugly, the impact of stress on your team. Did you know that emotions are contagious? And just imagine that when you go into the office and you are running on empty and you're irritable and you're experiencing stress and you haven't really dealt with it because you don't necessarily recognize what's going on, can you imagine the impact on your team and what they feel and think? And if they're paid to think, the part of their brain that's paid to think shuts off just like yours did. So let's talk about what you need to know about your brain to leverage stress for yourself and for your team. So we've talked about the 5 functions of your PFC. It's called the prefrontal cortex, otherwise known as the thinking brain, the part of your brain responsible for thinking. The 5 functions are inhibiting, keeping thoughts or distractions off the stage with the ability to stay focused, decision-making, comparing 2 or more possibilities, and deciding on one of them, reasoning, thinking, if I do this, then this could happen, understanding, listening, reading, doing something new, integrating it into an existing knowledge base, which is different than memorizing or learning. Learning or hardwiring new ideas. Think about when you first started driving a car. There were so many steps that had to be done in a specific sequence, and the added pressure of stress, the fact that you're on the road, on the highway, in a however many 1,000-pound vehicle, going really fast or not going really fast, and then you have other people, you have traffic, you have people merging, you have lights, you have so much to pay attention to. Do you remember how exhausted you felt after a driving lesson? You may not, but for those of you who have teenagers, you may. Because the part of your brain that's responsible for this is actually not very powerful. So I'd like to manage your expectations. Think about your brain here on the left-hand slide, the brain as and actually when we're born, our brains are smooth. Those grooves and crevices are wisdom, experience, learning, beliefs, and everything that we ever experience is stored at the cellular level in our brain. And in our brain, I'm just going to make it extraordinarily simple, and this is what you need to know so that you can use some of the skills we're going to talk about toward the end. So think about your whole entire, your brain. Think about this front part right here. This front part is called the prefrontal cortex, and we just talked about what it was responsible for, inhibiting or focusing, decision-making, reasoning, understanding, and learning. And as if you looked at it on a timeline, the brain developed from this brain stem, which is responsible for respiration, for heart, for everything that we don't think about, okay, for all those functions that we need to survive, but we, thank goodness, don't have to think about to do. Now, that developed into this gray matter here in terms of layers. So as we got smarter and as we began to use our brain for problem solving, right, for solving problems, it actually grew, right? So what we did is we actually grew our brain by being smart. And because we were smart, we grew our brain. Now, they're all over here and all this other gray matter here is responsible also for all of our other processing systems, and it's much more complicated than I'm going to put out here. But what I will tell you is this tiny little part right here, kind of looks like a flame on your picture. That's called the amygdala. The amygdala is the part of our brain that I refer to as, it's called reptilian brain because basically it's what we have in common with reptiles. But I think lizard brain is much easier to remember, and it'll get your attention. So think about amygdala as lizard brain. And lizard brain, when we're in lizard brain, for example, think about this. The last time you were in an argument. Think about the last time you were in an argument with somebody. Can you get that in your head? Okay. So you were in an argument with somebody, your teeth were clenched, your fists were clenched, your heart rate was up, your respiration was up, and you wanted to get your point across. You weren't feeling felt. You weren't getting heard. The other person wasn't listening to you, and you were in a state of lizard brain. fight, flight, or freeze. Again, depends on how intense the argument was, right? And then about 20 minutes later, or a couple hours later for some of us, you had that aha moment. You had that moment that said, oh, God, I wish I would have said that. Why didn't I think of that when we were having that argument? Why didn't I remember that when we were having that argument? Or you may have had that aha moment, that moment of insight that said, oh, now I understand what they were now I see their perspective, right? It's this part of the brain, this prefrontal cortex, is very much responsible for that aha moment. Also, there's another part of the brain too, but also just in what you did in that 20 minutes or 2 hours from the time you were in lizard brain to the time you were in thinking brain, because we can't be in lizard brain and thinking brain at the same time unless you're a Navy SEAL. We actually have to switch, but some of us stay in lizard brain longer and get into thinking brain, right away, sooner or later. That you had to take a few of these deep breaths, and you had to kind of engage another part of your brain so that you could get out of lizard brain and into thinking brain. So think about it this way. So on the left of your slide, there's a stage, okay? And I'm going to use David Rock's stage model from a book he wrote called Your Brain at Work. Fantastic book. Fantastic when it comes to understanding how the brain works. I highly recommend it. So here's David Rock's stage model. So imagine this prefrontal cortex is like this very small stage, okay? Very, very small stage. On a small stage, only one actor wants to be on the stage at a time. Only one actor can fit on the stage at a time. And those lights that are illuminating the stage are actually on the stage here are powered by 220. Yet, for your prefrontal cortex, when you're thinking about an idea, you're trying to solve a problem, just imagine that problem is on the stage. And those lights represent your attention, your ability to focus on that problem. Now, in your brain, those lights aren't powered by 220. Those lights are powered by rechargeable batteries. And you wonder why when you're focused on a problem and you're trying to avoid distractions and you're trying to understand and reason and learn, why you feel so tired? The reason is because the prefrontal cortex, part of your brain that's responsible for all that thinking, gets exhausted easily. It's powered by rechargeable batteries. Okay? So I want to manage your expectations with respect to why it is. Just because you understand something doesn't mean you're going to do anything differently. Because the part of your brain that you use to understand something is not the part that's driving the bus most of the time. So your brain is powered by rechargeable batteries, and the part of your brain that's responsible for all that what you're motivated by, and we are much more motivated to avoid pain than we are to seek pleasure. That's just how we're hardwired. And as a result, we actually look for pain so that we can avoid it. Kind of, use the phrase, a little back-asswards wiring. It wasn't when we were running from saber-toothed tigers, because if we heard a rustling in the bushes, we could be ready and we can run. And if we ran and we got scratched, right, we got a tiger claw in the back of the leg, we were running just fast enough that we didn't get eaten. It really worked for us. So our brain got hardwired, and it continued to do what worked. Okay, so your brain is very hardwired to avoid pain, but in order to avoid it, have to pay attention to see if it's going to come around the corner or not. So we are still hardwired, even though we're not running from saber-toothed tigers. We're hardwired to work harder to avoid pain than to seek pleasure. Okay? So that being said, the part of your brain, in terms of motivation to move away from pain and toward pleasure, is extraordinarily powerful. Got the power of the U.S. economy before 2008. Now, the prefrontal cortex, the part that's responsible for thinking, has the power of the change in the piggy bank. So that's why understanding is overrated. And just because we understand something in that fragile, little, weak prefrontal cortex does not mean it's going to override the powerful subconscious brain. And here's why you need to know that. You need to know that because the subconscious brain is what's going to get you into lizard brain. Lizard brain wins 99% of the time unless you can prevent it, recognize it before it gets too bad. On a scale of 0 to 10, recognize it at more about a 4 or 5 or a 6, and recognize that you can actually cause other people's lizard brain. Just remember that when the lizard's driving, the thinking brain's in the back seat, and as a leader, you are paid to think. You are not paid to be in lizard brain, and your team is paid to think and not to be in lizard brain. Lizard brain triggers the part of our brain that's responsible for fight, flight, or freeze. So anytime we experience even a little bit of stress, somebody experiences your stress vicariously. You come into the office in a bad mood. You actually start shifting them from thinking brain to lizard brain, and that's not what you want to do. The other thing is pretending equals stress. When we are responsible, when in that position of having authority and influence, we actually tend to distance ourselves from the people that we work with or that work for us. And the old phrase, don't let them see you sweat, don't wear your heart on your sleeve, don't show a vulnerability or a weakness. Probably this is why many men don't raise their hand when asked if stress is a problem. They're pretending. They're pretending because what they believe is, and this is a very male way of thinking versus a female. Now I know I'm definitely generalizing here, because I'm sure I'm going to have women in the audience that will contradict me, and I'll have men in the audience all the time that contradict the statement. But the statement is when we are pretending so we don't want to be found out. I can't tell you how many very, very successful CEOs I work with who they're one of their deepest secrets is they're going to get found out, that the people that their staff, their team, their stockholders, their board is going to see that they're a fake, right? So whenever we have to put on the facade of being extraordinarily successful and right all the time, it actually leads to stress. And the other thing that leads to stress is when we disconnect physically from others and when we disconnect emotionally from others. Now, when it comes to leadership stress, I think this might be a little counterintuitive, but connection and authenticity, which are the opposite of these two stress-producing states, authenticity and connection are your solution to reducing leadership stress. And because stress is contagious, but emotions are contagious, so when you feel at ease, and I'm going to show you how to feel at ease in a conversation that you may not realize it actually can be very simple, although it might not be very easy, which is why I'm happy to offer you additional support and ideas. But when you realize that emotions are contagious, so is confidence. And so is connection. And connection is a result of authenticity. So since you're paid to think and listen to your intuition, there's got to be a balance between your head and your heart. And emotions are contagious. Here's what I'd like to show you. You can respond versus react and leverage stress to be more authentic, connected, and a sustainable leader. You can also be more effective, productive, creative, connected, and satisfied. So let me stop here really briefly to see if there's any questions on the webcast. If you have a question about anything that we've talked about up to now with respect to lizard brain and stress and how the brain works and how leaders are in a position of influence that can result in value or not, please go ahead and if you're on the phone, press star 2 and raise your hand. And if you are on the webcast, to the left of your screen, you'll see a Q&A box. And in that Q&A box, you can type in a question. Okay. Not seeing any questions. Let me check one more spot here. Sounds like everybody's good to go. Okay, we're like, nope, good to go, good to go. Okay, good. Oh, somebody is actually just realizing their aha moment and their lizard brain. Thank you. It's interesting to see, what are the real brain-based descriptions of why we do that. All right, so now you're ready for the how-to. How to get out of lizard brain and into a balanced thinking and feeling brain so that you can have positive influence that harnesses potential and creates value. As I said before, and Dr. Daniel Siegel, who wrote the interpersonal neurobiology, it's called the mindful brain. So Daniel Siegel is a psychiatrist that specializes in the brain-body connection, but also attachment and bonding. But he's done some exceptional work with Daniel Goleman of emotional intelligence and Jonathan Kabat-Zinn, who has done extraordinary work in the area of mindfulness and how mindfulness can actually be an incredible solution for people who are experiencing stress as a result of emotional problems, of thinking problems, but also as a terrific solution for everyday challenges, incorporating the practice of mindfulness, which many of you will probably recognize in the next 10 solutions. So compassion, caring, and developing others actually reduces or eliminates power stress. So let me show you how to do that with simple strategies of communication to leverage stress. So because most of us spend more time at work than we do at home, when I started working with clients, actually therapy clients in my office, I would work with a lot of very successful business people, and I would teach them strategies about how to communicate and how to listen at a fairly high level that I would have them practice at work because that's when they were successful, and that's where they felt a less of an attachment to the outcome than they did at home, where the stakes were much higher, whether it was with their partner or spouse or child. So I would have them practice at work, in communication, in conversation, and when they felt confident enough, then I wanted to have them to execute those strategies at home. And it was very interesting how people would tell me, oh, yes, it was very helpful at home, but oh, my gosh, the difference at work that it made. And so that's what gave me my aha moment about developing this process for people. So simple strategies regarding in communication to leverage stress. And because it's in conversation that we create connection, and we have lots of opportunity in conversation at work, the very first thing is I want you to do is to watch your language. Now, what do I mean by watch your language? Because thinking about your worst boss, back to the beginning, you thought about your worst boss. My guess is it was back to something he or she said or did that made you feel shameful, humiliated, incompetent, less than worthy, etc. Okay, something he or she said or did. So my guess is that there were words that were used that were lizard brain words when they were having a conversation with you, or if you overheard a conversation. It didn't even have to happen to you directly. It could have happened to you vicariously. So universal lizard brain words are why, no, you always, you never, you should. Okay, and you can insert number 6 and more here. And we all have our personal lizard brain words, but the first 3 or 4 or 5 are probably universal. So when we say those words, most people will go into lizard brain, fight, flight, or freeze. Why is a lizard brain word? Because it invokes defensiveness. No is a lizard brain word because it creates brain patterns that are kind of spiky and jagged. Always and never are lizard brain words because they're absolute, because nothing always happens, right? You don't always do certain things. You don't always forget. You're not always late, right? Although I'm sure that, the brain will sometimes feed you that BS. You never, another absolute, you should. That's not always a a lizard brain word for everybody, but I put that in there because it's one of my lizard brain words for sure. So stress solution number 1, instead of using language that invokes defensiveness, instead if you change your perspective to being one of curiosity, coming from a place of discovery, beginner's mind. So you're going to learn how to change your language to feel, instead of fear and anger, which is what you communicate when you use lizard brain words, and it's what you invoke in other people when you use those words as a leader, a person of influence, curiosity actually is the opposite emotion of of fear. The very same brain chemicals that are involved in us feeling fear are also involved in us feeling excited or curious. So you would change your language this way. Consider using the first 2 words, what or how. What or how, instead of why. So replace why with what or how. Not with nonverbal aggressiveness, like what were you thinking, but what was, out of genuine curiosity, what was your thinking? Help me see how you see it. How did you see this happening? If you're asking for an explanation from somebody, instead of using the word why, just shift to what or how. Help me see how you see it. That language actually, when we say help me, we actually get engagement from most of the population. 3% doesn't care. But hopefully you're not working with that 3%, although you may be. So help me see how you see it. Invites a different conversation. When in doubt, clarify, right? If you're confused or frustrated by something somebody did, you can't go wrong by just describing how you see it. Okay, so here's what I saw happen. You made this decision. This was the outcome, right? Clarifying, okay? And so whatever curiosity words you can think of, I'd like you to insert them into number 5 there. So some other what words or how words, we talked about what's one solution you think might work, what have you tried, how can I be a resource for you, help me see how you see it. These are all words and phrases that are going to invite connection. And connection, remember, decreases leadership stress. Stress solution number 2 has to do with eyebrows. I don't really have time to explain it today, but I will tell you, since horses taught me this, actually. My 2 horses, Banjo and Jack, taught me this. And someday I'd love to tell you the story, but suffice to say that I actually discovered this about horses and how some react and some don't. And I decided to help my clients maybe shift from fear to curiosity by just changing one part of their physiology. And it so happens that Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron movie was being shown about the same time with my daughter who loves horses, and we were watching how it was made, and how the movie was made is very interesting because real horses don't have eyebrows. So in the movie, the animators actually had to put eyebrows on the horses so that people who were watching the movie could understand what the emotions were that the horses were feeling, so they could follow the script, they can follow the dialogue and the story. Otherwise, people really don't have a clue. Shave your eyebrows off sometimes and find out. You get a very restrained response from people. So raising your eyebrows invokes curiosity, invokes a physiological change that invites our brain to be more curious than our brains being furrowed down between our eyebrows or our nose, which conveys the emotion of anger, okay, or fear, whether it's person giving or receiving the eyebrows down. So eyebrows up. Curiosity is the opposite of fear. Same chemicals, raise your eyebrows. Stress solution 3 and 4, acknowledge emotion. Do it for yourself and do it for others. So that's 3 and 4. If you simply label a feeling, if I feel frustrated and I just notice the feeling as if I'm an observer. So I get off the stage and I sit in the front row and I kind of watch myself and I say, interesting. feeling stressed out. Or I'm just experiencing a feeling. I don't even have to be accurate with that. It actually decreases the emotional charge. Think about the word emotion, energy and motion. It actually decreases the cortisol, decreases the charge around what we just told ourselves about our feeling. If we deny it, feelings don't deny. The days of leave your feelings at the door, pretend you're not this or pretend you're not that, that is so unrealistic for human beings. It's not even that funny. Now, I'm not saying wear your heart on your sleeve, but simply acknowledge an emotion. This is how it sounds if you want to do it for somebody that works for you. You don't have to have a therapy session right then and there in the office or in the cubicle, right? You can say, it seems like you're a bit stressed. How can I help? What do you need right now? The what do you need right now is a very powerful question. I was just talking to the owner of a very successful business at the Women's Leadership Workshop, and it was interesting how she said that when she didn't realize why it worked so well, but the fact that she would ask her staff some questions like that, what do you need right now? And some of the staff the employees would come up with some things like one person needed a different chair. One person needed a different letter opener. I mean, I guess part of us thinks, that's it, really? But the difference, first of all, the difference it made that she asked was huge in terms of building trust and a good relationship between her expressing caring and following through, compared to if she never asked, she never would have known that those little things made such a big difference in the ease and comfort level. Now, I know another client of mine had a staff person who was going through some personal problems, and he didn't really want to ask, he didn't really want to know, much less put the person in the position of having to disclose that. So he asked a better question. He says, what do you need right now? Very powerful question. And the staff person says, I really just need to take the afternoon off and be with my kids. And so my client was able to say, please, don't do that. So if he didn't ask, he never would have known, and he wouldn't be able to help. He didn't have to go into the details of what the problem was. Okay? So you have to ask a better question. Stress solution number 5, challenge assumptions. The reason why we behave the way we do is a result of our feelings. And as if you can remember from earlier in the conversation, our emotions are feelings. We're very emotionally driven. Those of you in marketing and sales know this. We make decisions based on emotion. We take action based on emotion. Whether we are avoiding a pain or we're seeking pleasure, odds are we're avoiding a pain, and if we can seek pleasure on top of it, there's your sale. Okay? So, but odds are we are avoiding a pain. And because we work harder to avoid pain than we do to seek pleasure, our feelings are actually really a result of BS. Okay? BS meaning what you think I mean, and BS also meaning belief systems. Some rule that got downloaded, that got connected, that we followed without question is driving that bus. Okay? So I like to say don't always believe what you think. Don't always believe what you think, because what you think leads to a belief that you're going to avoid a pain, which may or may not necessarily be really the case. So learn to check in. Learn some tools to check in and check it out. For your team, here's the best management advice I have ever heard. To act lazy and hard of hearing. Because when you act when you're too competent, when you are micromanaging, when you're solving everybody's problems, not only, sure, it makes you feel good, makes you feel confident, but unfortunately it does two things. The first thing is you start to feel hairy, overwhelmed, overworked, and resentful because you can't get their job done and yours done at the same time. So I think a lot of people would say, well, it's my job to solve problems. No, I think it's your job to help your people solve problems. Right? Help your people solve problems. Don't be so quick to make decisions. And if you can help people think by asking better questions, what have you tried? What do you need from me to get the job done? Okay. If you can rely on those questions more quickly and easily, you can help people have their own aha moments, which in the brain is a yummy connection where people feel a sense of satisfaction. And when they feel a sense of satisfaction, they're more creative, they're more satisfied, they learn to take risks, and they have their own aha moment, which is an actual moment of insight and inspiration. And we take that energy and we apply it to action, and then we're extraordinary. However, if you're a micromanager, you solve people's problems too quickly. Instead of aha moments, they have this kind of moment. So they come in, they say, blah, 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 I have this problem, and you say, oh, but here's what you should do. You should do this. And halfway through your should, halfway through your great idea, they're having a realization that they feel extraordinarily stupid because they should have thought of that. And that, my friend, is called an ah-duh moment. So you want people to have more aha moments so they can feel more inspired and satisfied and happier that they've done their best work. And you want them to have fewer ah-duh moments. Stress solutions 7, 8, and 9, avoid demotivating others. More aha moments, less ah-duh moments. Don't rob someone of the opportunity of making a connection, of learning, of feeling satisfied. Ask yourself, whose problem is it? If you solve problems for other people and it's really more their problem, you're going to rob them of an opportunity to learn. So stop. Respond slowly. I'm not sure how to answer that. I'll get back to you. Now I realize it's not always realistic in every organization, but try it more often than not. Stress solution number 10, invite your team to set their own goals, how-tos, and deadlines when possible. Give people credit. Trust them to be able to do their job. You hired great people. Get out of their way. Be a resource, not a micromanager. So before we get to the Q&A, I think there's a lot of information, even in just the 10 solutions that I've offered for you today. And the fact is, if you don't have a strategy for how you're going to become a best boss or an exceptional leader, keep your promotion, or become built to last, to avoid burnout or burnout, it probably won't happen by luck. And the fall down that ladder is very painful. And I'm sure you can imagine that if you got promoted or hired, and you are especially, not only if you're just a newly promoted or recently hired manager or leader, but if you've been in that position for a long time, you know it won't take much for you to fall down that ladder. And it is painful. And you've worked really hard to get where you're at. But you don't have to do it alone. Would you ever send your team on a mission to accomplish a goal without a plan, a process for accountability, or a clear picture of the expected outcome? Of course you wouldn't. So why would you set yourself up for failure when it comes to your own personal leadership success? Well, there's good news. You don't have to fail or fall or struggle to maintain what you worked so hard to accomplish. I have a solution for you. Your personal how-to strategy includes accountability and an action plan to eliminate, manage, and leverage stress to be a sustainable leader. So as a valued member of the Sustainable Leader community, I want you to have the chance to grab a seat to the upcoming Sustainable Leaders Masterclass, Eliminate Stress, and Develop Your Personal Leadership Development Plan. I've been announcing it, so there's only 12 positions, 12 seats available, and I want you to get one of them. And for people who take action quickly, take advantage of special pricing and additional bonus. So the upcoming Sustainable Leaders Masterclass is especially designed for high achievers like you. You've attended many classes, you've read tons of books, you've been to many seminars, you've done some online learning, and you've read books on how to get more done in less time with fewer resources, how to deal with difficult people, and you understand the concept. But when you get back to the office and you're faced with your revolving door policy or your crazy boss or your crazy team member or board member, do you remember to use what you've learned? Because if you're like most people, you can't remember to simply take understanding and turn it into action, especially when the lizard's driving the bus, because you're human and you experience the stress and you don't use it in the heat of the moment. Then you have your own ah-duh, right, moment saying, gosh, I wish I would have said that. I wish I would have done that. I remembered I learned that in that webinar the other day with Christina, but, right, you were in lizard brain. So if you could really learn and apply and tweak a few very fundamental, not very, very advanced, because most MBA or training programs will not teach you what I'm going to teach you. You're going to learn some strategies that you can use in real time at work. What if you had a secret weapon at your side, or pretty close? What if you had a confidential, supportive network who helps you find your perfect solution to your unique challenge when it comes to stress? And what if you could finally see real results in yourself and others, and they lasted well beyond the workshop or program? What would it be like to really love getting up and going to work because you felt you had a purpose and you were making a difference again? And what if, by doing so, you would be able to reduce, manage, and even leverage stress for yourself and your team? Well, now you can, because I'm sharing my unique blend of knowledge and experience as an expert in relationships, leadership development, and brain science behind motivation, communication, and influence in the Sustainable Leaders Masterclass. Take action and eliminate stress for busy managers and leaders and your team. And what I share with you may finally reduce your overwhelm, help you get more done in less time, do your best work, become the best boss, motivate your team to be more innovative and creative. And most of all, what's most important, and I'm going to use this word at work, is you're going to feel happier and more satisfied at work than you could have ever imagined. So here are the details. Again, there's only 12 seats available, and this offer is only good for the next 24 hours and just a couple hours beyond that, and or for the first 12 people who sign up. So the Sustainable Leaders Masterclass, Take Action to Eliminate Stress for You and Your Team, is a 6-session virtual group action and accountability program limited to 12 participants. We're going to meet 6 times. We're going to meet on the 30th of July. We're going to meet on the 6th of August, the 20th of August, so basically twice a month, the 9th of September, the 3rd of September, the 17th, and the 1st, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And though all the sessions are going to be recorded, so if you have to miss a session, you will absolutely be able to listen to it later. What you need to know is that there are 2 bonuses. There are 2 bonuses that I'm offering, and I'm also offering $500 savings if you sign up now, before the 21st and or before it's full, before the 21st at 10 p.m. Mountain Time. One bonus is a private 30-minute leadership strategy session with me so that you can talk about your unique challenges so that we can really, really, really laser focus our solutions and tailor this to what you need. And you can use that at any time 6 months after we start the program on the 30th. That's a $250 value, 30 minutes. And the other opportunity is also with a video. It's an 80-minute seminar on 21 ways to reduce stress, which your brain wishes you knew. Some of what we went in today, I go into in much more depth, and that is for your ability. Immediately, you will be able to download that and begin to use the information in that webinar. And then the other piece is this: the pricing for this will go up to $997 after the 21st, and we start on the 30th. 12 seats available. Right now is only $497. And that includes both bonuses. You can use that strategy session anytime in the 6 months that we're together. We're also going to be getting good information in one of the modules. In the following module, we'll be doing coaching. You're going to be able to network with like-minded, driven professionals like yourself of different industries, different calibers, and it's going to be a fantastic group. So you will also be able to derive solutions from not just me, but the answers and the solutions are in the group, and create some really great connections and be able to talk about some of the things you don't feel like you have anyone to talk about with other people who don't answer to you. It's not your spouse, it's not your partner, but you're going to be able to have 11 other people who will be able to help you think, and you can hear their solutions, some of the challenges you are experiencing as a leader. So right now, go to sustainable-leaders.com/masterclass, MASTERCLASS, and grab your seat now. Again, you're going to save $500 if you act quickly before the seats are filled, and this will fill quickly on or before the 21st. So get it now once the seats are filled, the seats are filled. I want to keep this a small, intimate group. So go to sustainable-leaders.com/masterclass so that you can get a seat at the table. So right now, if there are any questions, we are coming up short of an hour, and I want to be mindful of your time on this evening. And I'm not seeing any questions in the webcast at this point. I'm seeing some really nice comments. Thank you. People really like the lizard brain. I want to know if, and the what or how questions. I think be sure that when you walk away from this webinar, first of all, just notice the words that you're using. You don't have to take it and make change right away. You're not going to do that. The reality is it's going to take some accountability, some action, some strategy, and some practice. So did you reach your goals today? You had an idea of what you wanted to take away. Did you reach your goals today? Just take one small thing away. Imagine the impact on your leadership ability when you take this one small action step, something you heard me say, or an example that I gave, or a strategy maybe that you've heard me say that you've used that you really want to implement, that you want to do it with tremendous amount of focused intention. Imagine the impact on this positive change on your leadership ability. Now imagine the impact on your team's productivity. And imagine the impact on your organization over time. You don't have to do it alone. The Sustainable Leaders Masterclass, Take Action to Eliminate Stress for Yourself and Your Team, will help you take that idea and keep it from being just an idea, something that you wanted to do, something that you realize you should have done down the road, and really make it actionable and a fun experience where you also can be connected with like-minded people who are also very motivated to maintain their position they've worked so hard for and have a tremendous amount of satisfaction and ease. So the Sustainable Leaders Masterclass, for more information, to register, there is information on your screen, sustainable-leaders.com/masterclass. Any questions or comments, please email me directly or call me. My cell phone is on the slide, 720-936-2725, Christina at sustainable-leaders.com. For a free video, 7 simple strategies to eliminate stress, just a really brief, abbreviated version of some of what we talked about and a couple of different things, free for your taking. And remember, as the author or co-author of The Character-Based Leader, Instigating a Leadership Revolution, the contributing chapter I wrote is about professional intimacy, the key to sustainable leadership. Professional intimacy helps leaders become more sustainable, resilient, and able to build trust. I would thank you very, very much for your time and attention today in attending What Your Brain Wishes You Knew about leadership stress, myths and solutions for busy managers and leaders at all levels. Thank you very, very much. I truly appreciate your time and attention to your sustainable leadership. Thank you.